There is something in your refrigerator right now that I need to talk to you about. You bought it because you were trying to be healthy. You may have been eating it for years, maybe decades, feeling good about the choice every single time. Your doctor may have nodded approvingly when you mentioned it. Your family probably considers it a sensible part of your diet, and for your brain, after 60, it may be causing more damage than you realize. I know that is difficult to hear, and I want to be clear from the start that I am not here to make you afraid of fruit. Fruit is not the enemy, but not all fruit behaves the same way inside an aging brain. Some fruits feed your neurons, protect your memory centers, and actively slow cognitive decline. Others spike your blood sugar, create inflammation in your brain tissue, and accelerate the exact deterioration you are trying to prevent. The difference between those two categories is something most people, including many physicians, have never had clearly explained to them. And that gap is causing real harm to real people who are genuinely trying to take care of their health. My name is Dr. William Madison. I have spent more than 20 years working with older adults on the specific question of how nutrition affects cognitive function and brain aging. What I am about to share is based on a body of research that is consistent, substantial, and almost entirely absent from standard dietary advice. Today I'm going to walk you through 5 fruits that are working against your brain if you are over 60 and eating them regularly, and 5 fruits that research shows can genuinely protect, and in some cases, improve your cognitive function. The 5th protective fruit surprises almost everyone, because most people do not think of it as a fruit at all. And the research connecting it to brain health is some of the most compelling I have seen. Before we get to the specifics, I need to explain what happens to the brain after 60 that changes everything. Because the reason certain foods cause problems after 60 that they did not cause at 40 is not arbitrary. It is biological. And once you understand it, everything else will make complete sense. Here is what is happening inside your brain right now that most people over 60 have never been told. The first change is reduced blood flow to neurons. By the time most people reach 60, blood flow to the brain has decreased by approximately 15% compared to middle age. Your neurons depend on a continuous, adequate supply of oxygen and glucose. When blood flow is reduced, neurons receive less of what they need. Memory formation slows. Processing speed decreases. Mental stamina diminishes. And neurons already receiving less blood flow are far more vulnerable to additional damage from inflammation. The second change is a slower brain cleaning system. While you sleep, your brain flushes out toxic proteins that accumulated during the day, including a protein called beta amyloid, the same substance found in the plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. After 60, this cleaning system works less efficiently. It clears less waste per night. The proteins build up faster than they are being removed. Foods that increase inflammation or impair circulation make this already struggling system work even less effectively. The third change is increased permeability of the blood-brain barrier. Your brain has a protective filter designed to prevent harmful substances in the bloodstream from reaching brain tissue. After 60, this barrier becomes less selective. It allows more inflammatory molecules through than it should. A food-driven inflammation spike that would have affected mostly your body in your 40s can now more directly affect your brain tissue in your 60s and 70s. These 3 changes mean the brain after 60 is operating in a more vulnerable state than it was 20 years earlier. Foods that barely registered as a concern at 40 can now contribute meaningfully to cognitive decline. The tolerance is lower. The impact of each choice is higher. And the pattern of what you eat over months and years determines whether you maintain your sharpness or begin losing it in ways that eventually become impossible to ignore. With that foundation in place, let us talk about the 5 fruits most likely causing problems for your brain right now. The first fruit category to remove from your regular rotation is canned fruit in syrup. The problem is not the fruit. The problem is what the fruit is sitting in. Canned fruit cocktail, canned peaches, canned pears, and similar products packed in heavy syrup or sweetened juice are saturated with high fructose corn syrup or concentrated fruit sugars. A single small serving produces a significant blood sugar spike in a healthy young adult. In an older adult with any degree of insulin resistance, which is extremely common after 60 even without a diabetes diagnosis, the spike is considerably larger. Here's what happens in the brain when blood sugar spikes sharply and repeatedly. The pancreas releases insulin to manage the incoming sugar. In an older adult with declining insulin sensitivity, this response is often larger and more disruptive than it needs to be. Insulin is not only a blood sugar regulating hormone, it also functions as a signaling molecule in the brain. When insulin surges repeatedly over months and years, brain cells begin developing what researchers call insulin resistance at the neuronal level. The neurons stop responding normally to insulin signals. And because insulin signaling in the brain is directly involved in memory formation, learning, and cognitive flexibility, neurons that have become insulin resistant function less effectively. Some scientists refer to advanced Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes because of the deep connection between insulin dysfunction and the neurological damage seen in that condition. I am not saying canned fruit causes Alzheimer's. I am saying that chronic blood sugar spiking from heavily sweetened canned fruit contributes to exactly the kind of neuronal insulin resistance that compromises memory and cognition over time. I had a patient who had been eating canned fruit cocktail twice a day for years, genuinely believing she was making a healthy choice. When we looked at her daily blood sugar patterns, she was spiking significantly twice a day, at intervals that matched her fruit cocktail habit exactly. Within 6 weeks of switching to fresh berries, her mental clarity had noticeably improved. She stopped losing her train of thought mid-sentence. Her family commented that she seemed sharper. The only thing that changed was the form of the fruit. If you love ready-to-eat fruit, choose options packed in water with no added sugar, or keep washed fresh fruit easily accessible. The convenience of canned fruit in syrup is not worth the cognitive cost. The second fruit category to reconsider is fruit juice, including freshly squeezed juice with no added sugar. This one generates the most resistance because fruit juice has decades of cultural reputation as a healthy morning ritual. Orange juice with breakfast is almost universally regarded as a virtuous habit. But this is about understanding what fiber does and what happens when you remove it. When you eat a whole orange, the fiber slows sugar absorption. The sugar enters your bloodstream gradually over 20 to 30 minutes, producing a manageable rise in blood glucose. Now consider what happens when you juice 4 oranges and drink it in 90 seconds. Every bit of sugar from 4 oranges enters your bloodstream within minutes because there is no fiber left to slow absorption. Your blood sugar rises sharply. Your pancreas responds with a large insulin release. The cycle of inflammatory signaling that damages brain tissue begins again. Would you deliberately eat 4 oranges in 90 seconds? Your satiety signals would stop you well before you finished. But that is the metabolic equivalent of a glass of orange juice, with all the protective buffering removed. Studies following older adults over multiple years have found that regular fruit juice consumption is associated with faster rates of hippocampal shrinkage. The hippocampus is the primary memory-forming region of the brain and one of the first areas affected in early Alzheimer's disease. Accelerated physical shrinkage of this specific structure from a daily dietary habit is not a minor finding. One of my patients had been drinking 2 large glasses of juice every day for 30 years. His fasting blood sugar had been gradually climbing. When he switched from juice to eating 2 whole pieces of fruit instead, his morning blood sugar stabilized within weeks. At 3 months, he described a level of mental clarity and afternoon energy he had not experienced in years. He had simply stopped flooding his brain with liquid sugar every morning. The vitamins in juice are real. But every nutrient available in juice is also available in whole fruit, accompanied by the fiber that makes it safe for your brain. There is no nutritional argument for juice that cannot be better served by the whole fruit it came from. The third fruit category to significantly reduce is dried fruit, including raisins, dates, dried apricots, and dried mango. When water is removed from fruit, the sugar content per unit of weight increases dramatically. A small handful of raisins contains approximately 25 to 30 grams of sugar, more than most candy bars. 6 dates contain enough sugar to spike blood glucose higher than a glazed donut. The sugar is natural. Your body responds to it identically. What makes dried fruit particularly dangerous for older adults is how easy it is to eat in large quantities. You would feel physically full after 3 fresh apricots, but you can consume 15 dried apricots without feeling full, because the water that would have triggered satiety has been removed. You have consumed the sugar equivalent of 15 apricots while feeling like you barely had a snack. Many commercially dried fruits are also treated with sulfites to preserve color and prevent spoilage. Sulfites can interfere with the absorption of zinc and magnesium, 2 minerals critically important for brain function and nerve signaling. I worked with a patient who kept a bag of dried mango in her purse and ate it throughout every day as what she considered a responsible snack. When we calculated the sugar from that single habit alone, it exceeded 40 grams daily. Her blood sugar was chronically elevated. Her memory complaints were among her most pressing concerns. After switching to fresh fruit and a small handful of unsalted nuts, her cognitive function stabilized and began showing clear improvement within 3 months. If you enjoy the sweetness and portability of dried fruit, substitute fresh berries or sliced apple. The sweetness is there, the vitamins are there, the sugar spike is not. The fourth fruit category to approach with caution is very sweet tropical fruits eaten in large quantities or as a daily staple. Mangoes, pineapples, and papayas contain genuine nutritional value. The concern is the quantity and frequency with which many older adults consume them, and how blood sugar metabolism changes after 60 in ways that alter how these fruits behave in the body. A large ripe mango contains approximately 45 to 50 grams of sugar. These are not trivial amounts, particularly for someone with any degree of insulin resistance, which is present in the majority of adults over 65, often without any awareness. Most routine blood panels check glucose and HbA1c, but not fasting insulin, which is the more sensitive early indicator. The person who processed a mango smoothie bowl comfortably at 40 may experience a blood glucose response at 65 that is dramatically larger and more damaging to brain tissue, because their insulin sensitivity has changed in ways routine testing would not have caught. Research consistently shows that people who consume large amounts of high-sugar fruits, even entirely natural ones, show faster rates of cognitive decline and more evidence of brain aging on imaging than those who focus on lower sugar, higher antioxidant options. I am not suggesting you never enjoy a piece of mango or a slice of pineapple. Eating them occasionally is not what drives cognitive decline. What drives the problem is making them a daily staple, eating large portions, or consuming them in smoothies where it is easy to eat the equivalent of 2 or 3 mangoes without registering it as a large sugar intake. Treat the sweetest tropical fruits as an occasional pleasure, rather than a daily cornerstone of your diet. The fifth fruit category to eliminate completely is processed fruit products, specifically fruit chips, fruit crisps, and similar packaged snacks that present themselves as healthy alternatives. The marketing is sophisticated. Images of wholesome fruit, words like baked, natural, no artificial flavors, positioned in the health food section at health food prices, and they deliver a combination that is almost uniquely damaging to the aging brain. Most fruit chips are deep fried in low-quality refined vegetable oils, then coated with sugar or salt. The frying process damages the oils, producing compounds that promote inflammation throughout the body, including in brain tissue. When you eat damaged, oxidized fat alongside concentrated fruit sugar, you deliver a two-directional assault on cognitive function simultaneously. The sugar spikes blood glucose and drives neuronal insulin resistance. The oxidized fat crosses the blood-brain barrier and contributes to the buildup of inflammatory compounds in brain tissue, including proteins associated with Alzheimer's pathology. I worked with a patient who had deliberately replaced her afternoon cookie habit with dried apple chips, feeling virtuous about the switch. What she did not know was that those chips contained added sugar and were fried in palm oil. Over the following months, her cholesterol numbers worsened, her afternoon mental clarity decreased, and she developed unexplained fatigue. When we replaced the chips with a fresh apple and a handful of raw walnuts, her energy stabilized, her focus improved, and her cholesterol began moving back toward normal. If the fruit does not look like it grew that way, it is no longer behaving like fruit nutritionally. A banana chip is not a banana. An apple crisp is not an apple. The processing has removed the fiber, damaged the fats, and added sugar, turning something beneficial into something that actively works against your brain. Now let us talk about the 5 fruits that can genuinely protect your brain and, with consistent use over time, measurably slow the cognitive decline most people simply accept as inevitable. The first protective fruit is blueberries. If there is one food I could recommend above all others for brain health after 60, it would be blueberries. The research is among the most consistent and compelling in the entire field of nutritional neuroscience. Blueberries contain an exceptionally high concentration of compounds called anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for their deep blue-purple color. Anthocyanins do something inside the brain that very few dietary compounds can do. They cross the blood-brain barrier, passing from the bloodstream directly into brain tissue, where they reduce inflammation, protect individual neurons from oxidative damage, and measurably improve communication between brain cells. Studies have demonstrated measurable improvements in memory test performance within just a few weeks of daily blueberry consumption. Long-term research following participants over years has found that those who eat blueberries multiple times per week show significantly slower rates of cognitive decline. One large study found that regular blueberry consumers reduced their risk of developing dementia by approximately 45% compared to those who rarely ate berries. 45%. from a food available at any grocery store for a few dollars. The anthocyanins specifically protect the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, the regions most directly involved in memory formation and executive function. They improve blood flow to these areas, enhance how efficiently neurons use energy, and research suggests they may even stimulate the growth of new connections between neurons. I have seen meaningful changes in patients who made half a cup of blueberries a non-negotiable part of their daily routine. One patient who had been struggling to follow conversations found that within 2 months, her family had stopped needing to repeat things. Another who could not follow television plot lines regained the ability to track complex stories. Fresh and frozen blueberries are both excellent. Frozen blueberries picked at peak ripeness may actually contain more anthocyanins than fresh ones that have been sitting in transport and storage. Half a cup a day is all the research requires to produce measurable benefit. The second protective fruit is pomegranate. Your brain consumes roughly 20% of all the oxygen and nutrients your body takes in, despite being only 2% of your body weight. It is extraordinarily dependent on adequate blood flow, and the blood vessels supplying it become progressively less flexible and efficient as we age. This reduced cerebrovascular efficiency is one of the primary drivers of age-related cognitive decline. The compounds in pomegranate, particularly a group of polyphenols called punicalagins, help blood vessels relax and dilate, reducing resistance and delivering more blood to the brain per heartbeat. Research has found that adults who consume pomegranate regularly show measurable increases in blood flow to memory-critical brain regions, with documented improvements in memory performance after as little as 4 weeks of daily consumption. My recommendation is to eat the fresh seeds, called arils, rather than drinking pomegranate juice. The seeds provide fiber that moderates sugar absorption while delivering all the beneficial compounds fully intact. If you prefer juice, choose pure pomegranate juice with no added sugar and limit yourself to 4 to 6 ounces rather than drinking it freely. A patient who had been describing persistent brain fog and difficulty finding words began eating the seeds from half a pomegranate every day. Within a month, she felt mentally clearer, was participating more actively in conversations, and was searching for words far less often. The third protective fruit is the apple, with one critical condition that most people eating apples for health are unknowingly skipping. Apples contain a flavonoid called quercetin, concentrated almost entirely in the skin. The flesh provides fiber and vitamins, but the primary neuroprotective compound is in the skin. If you peel your apples, you are removing the most valuable part for brain health. Quercetin stabilizes cell membranes, making neurons more resistant to damage from inflammatory molecules and free radicals. It helps regulate blood sugar, reducing the post-meal spikes that damage brain tissue. And it crosses into brain tissue, where it directly supports neuronal health. Apples also contain substantial soluble fiber called pectin, which slows sugar absorption and feeds beneficial gut bacteria. The bacteria in your gut produce compounds that directly influence brain chemistry and systemic inflammation levels. A healthy gut microbiome contributes to lower neuroinflammation. By feeding beneficial bacteria, apples support brain health through a pathway entirely separate from their direct nutritional content. Long-term studies consistently find that older adults who eat apples regularly show slower rates of cognitive decline. Choose organic apples when possible, since you will be eating the skin. Eat them whole. This is not an expensive or complicated habit, and the consistency of 1 apple per day with the skin intact is worth more than any occasional expensive supplement for long-term brain protection. The fourth protective fruit is kiwi. Most people significantly underestimate this small, unassuming fruit. Kiwi contains more vitamin C per serving than an orange, meaningful amounts of vitamin E, plus folate and potassium. This combination supports cognitive function through several simultaneous pathways. Vitamin C is one of the brain's primary defenses against oxidative damage. It neutralizes free radicals before they can damage neurons and blood vessels, and supports the production of neurotransmitters essential for memory and learning. Vitamin E, being fat-soluble, specifically protects the fatty membranes of brain cells in ways water-soluble antioxidants cannot reach. Folate supports the production of brain chemicals involved in mood, focus, and memory. Potassium regulates the electrical activity that allows neurons to fire correctly and communicate with each other. What makes kiwi particularly valuable is that despite its sweet flavor, it has a relatively modest impact on blood glucose. It satisfies the desire for something sweet without producing the sharp blood sugar spike that drives inflammation and neuronal insulin resistance. For patients trying to increase fruit intake while watching blood sugar, kiwi is often my first recommendation. One patient experiencing difficulty concentrating and mental fatigue by early afternoon added 2 kiwis to her daily routine. She noticed increased mental stamina within a few weeks, able to focus on tasks for longer periods without feeling mentally depleted. Stable blood sugar, combined with comprehensive antioxidant protection, had created a meaningfully better cognitive environment throughout her day. The fifth protective fruit is avocado, and I want to address the thing most people think immediately upon hearing it. Avocado is a fruit. Botanically, technically, it is a fruit. And it belongs on this list because the research connecting it to brain health is compelling, specific, and biologically grounded in ways that make complete sense once you understand what the aging brain actually needs. Unlike every other fruit on this list, avocado is low in sugar and high in fat, specifically monounsaturated fat, and this is precisely why it is so valuable after 60. Your brain is approximately 60% fat by composition. The quality of the fats you consume directly affects the structure and function of every brain cell. When you consistently consume high-quality fats, cell membranes are fluid, flexible, and functionally efficient. Neurons communicate easily. Memory formation and retrieval work as they should. When the fats in your diet are primarily damaged or inflammatory, those same membranes become rigid and dysfunctional. Neuronal communication degrades, cognitive function declines. The monounsaturated fats in avocado are among the best available for maintaining healthy brain cell membrane structure. Avocado also contains meaningful amounts of vitamin E and a compound called lutein, a carotenoid that crosses into the brain and accumulates in brain tissue, where it has been directly linked to better performance on tests of memory, processing speed, and executive function. Research finds that older adults with higher lutein levels consistently perform better on cognitive assessments and show slower rates of age-related decline. There is one more benefit that makes avocado uniquely useful. When you eat it with other foods, its fat content slows the absorption of sugars from those other foods, blunting the blood glucose response from the entire meal. Eating avocado is not just protecting your brain through its own nutritional content. It is reducing the inflammatory impact of everything you eat with it. A patient who had been describing persistent mental sluggishness building over 2 years began adding half an avocado to his daily breakfast. Within several weeks, he reported feeling mentally sharper, making decisions more quickly, no longer struggling to retrieve names and words the way he had been. He told me it felt less like aging and more like being himself again. Let me bring this together now because I want you to see the complete picture clearly. The 5 fruits to limit or eliminate are not harmful because they are fruits. They are harmful because of the form they take or the quantity in which they are consumed. Canned fruit and syrup delivers concentrated sugar with no fiber protection. Fruit juice delivers the sugar of multiple fruits simultaneously, without the fiber that makes whole fruit safe for the brain. Dried fruit concentrates sugar into a form that is easy to massively overconsume. Very sweet tropical fruits eaten in large daily quantities produce chronic blood sugar variability that drives inflammation and neuronal insulin resistance. And processed fruit products combine concentrated sugar with oxidized fats in a way that attacks brain health through 2 pathways simultaneously. The 5 protective fruits are beneficial because of documented biological mechanisms. Blueberries deliver anthocyanins that cross the blood-brain barrier and directly reduce neuroinflammation. Pomegranate improves cerebrovascular circulation, delivering more oxygen to neurons already working with reduced blood flow. Apples provide quercetin in the skin that stabilizes neuronal membranes and reduces blood sugar variability. Kiwi provides a comprehensive antioxidant package with modest glycemic impact. And avocado provides the high-quality fats the aging brain needs to maintain the cell membrane structure that neuronal communication depends on. These are not small or theoretical differences. Research following older adults over years shows measurable differences in cognitive performance, brain volume, hippocampal integrity, and dementia risk between people who regularly consume brain-protective fruits and those who regularly consume brain-damaging ones. Your shopping cart decisions are brain health decisions. The patterns you maintain over months and years determine whether you are adding to your cognitive resilience or subtracting from it with each meal. Here's what I want you to do today, before this fades into the background. Look at the fruit in your refrigerator and your pantry right now. Is there juice you drink regularly? Canned fruit and syrup? Dried fruit you snack on throughout the day? Processed fruit chips you reach for as a healthy option? And then ask yourself honestly when you last bought fresh blueberries, kiwi, or avocado, and made them a consistent daily habit rather than an occasional purchase. The brain you will have in 10 years is being built by the decisions you make today. Not by any single meal, but by the consistent patterns that accumulate into either a diet that is protecting your neurons or quietly compromising them. You now have the information to make that choice deliberately rather than accidentally. If this gave you something useful today, please share it with someone you care about who is over 60 and eating fruit regularly without knowing some of what they are choosing may be working against the health goals they are trying to achieve. Send it to a parent. Share it with a friend concerned about their memory. Pass it along to a partner who drinks juice every morning, believing it is a healthy habit. The information that protects brain health is only valuable when it reaches the right person, while there is still time to act on it. I'm Dr. William Madison. Your brain has carried your memories, your personality, and your independence for over 6 decades. It deserves to be protected with information that is honest, specific, and grounded in what the research actually shows. Take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and I will see you in the next video.